It's about the view. It's like it's become like a medical hospital that displays human misfailure. Like it's like here, let's look at this political oddity. It's like it really is like the left-wing equivalent of a carnival sideshow, except instead of bearded ladies and fat clowns and two-headed cows. Well, let me rephrase that.
Misogyny and sexism.
Sure, all that, and the price of butter. Sonny gets the game ball. If it wasn't for her, asking that question, it might have been a closer election. Oh, nothing really comes to mind. I was like, Ching, listen, they're bitter, they're angry, they're entitled. They also should be. This should have been a reset for everyone who pushed lies and misinformation for the last. They called him Hitler. They call these things. America rejected them, and instead of coming back and saying we lied, they instead are now doubling down. So let her keep doing it, because if she keeps that up, we're going to keep getting the Senate and probably the House and the White House, because people see right through your lies. So keep doing what you're doing. Game ball to Sunday.
The lights in the studio blazed bright that night, but it was due to worry, not heat. You could sense it in the tempo of the conversation and the sharpness in the tone. The cameras appeared to lean in closer than usual. It wasn't your average night of commentary. Something was different. Something had cracked. For years, television has mastered the art of generating controversy, showing ideological conflict as if it were choreography, intended to evoke rage but never ignite a real fire. And in the center of that nicely lit stage stood The View, ABC's flagship of daytime discourse, which promoted itself as a roundtable of diverse perspectives while often delivering something much more predictable. A collision between caricatures. Sunny Hostin has become one of the show's most recognizable voices, eloquent, calm, and unwavering. She built her brand on conviction. She wasn't just offering opinions, she was asserting moral claims. Whether you agreed with her or not, she spoke as if she did more than just believe she was right. She knew it. However, uncontrolled conviction may be detrimental. And somewhere along the way, her belief began to solidify into something else. Something stiffer, more practiced, and, for many, more insufferable. It did not occur overnight.
Hostin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her face. Today's video comes to us from sunny Hostin. Sounds like a town. We're in sunny Hostin. She was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sunny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice. Well, turns out she's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners from Europe.
It's not even that. In The View, you don't need to find Trumpers. You need to fire your race baiters.
Yeah.
You need to fire the two races. You've had people. You had a McCain on there. You've had people on there before, and you ran them off. Mm-hmm. So the racist ones who want to stick to this, Whoopi and Sunny, and the was it Bette Midler? What's her name? Yeah, broke-ass Bette Midler. Fire them and bring people in. Maybe you could get McCain to come back. She was a Republican, but every show and every break, she was nearly in tears because she was being attacked.
Sunny Hostin progressed from analyst to advocate, journalist to judge. Her targets were all familiar: conservative politicians, right-wing media, and anybody who dared to challenge the liberal doctrine that she helped defend. She depicted them as threats, not opponents, and as enemies of truth itself. She had been untouchable for a long time before this. It started gently, with some raised eyebrows on social media. Clips circulated. Hostin presented claims that did not quite line up, and the dates did not correspond. Quotes were taken out of context. Then came the accusations, murmured at first, then louder, that Sunny Hostin was not just wrong, but also dishonest. But the moment the dam broke was on Gutfeld, Fox's increasingly unstoppable late-night juggernaut hosted by Greg Gutfeld, a person who made his name by upending modern media standards.
The View is a victim of the sunk cost fallacy. How can you now speak the truth when for years you've been telling lie after lie after lie? Now you're carrying this big bag of rocks around you because it's too harmful for their ego to admit that we really were dishonest. And they could be honest. All they would have to say is, look, we hate Trump so much. We were willing to lie about Joe Biden because we felt he was preferable. We thought our lying and our cover-up was on your behalf. Just say that. You're still scum, but at least you're honest scum.
The problem is that you have to go after the racist people. And if the CEO goes, you know what? I'm not going to allow a woman on my show or man that will go after white America and talk about them like dogs. That doesn't represent our ideals or values for anyone. And get rid of those people, and this will clear up real quick. So do you have to actually look in the mirror and clean up your own backyard and get the racist people out? Because that's who you allowed in. You allowed black racist on TV who could just go all day and say anything about white people. And I guess lo and behold, they forgot that there's a lot of people at home, white people at home during the day that are not watching your show anymore. So just clean it up.
Yeah, you know,
Tyrus, the former wrestler turned cultural wrecking ball, was with him that night, having transformed into a symbol of working-class resistance in a culture of elite double standards. They were there to discuss commerce, crack jokes, and have fun. However, what happened next was entirely unexpected. Gutfeld began the presentation with a grin. "Let's talk about the truth," Gutfeld said, before playing a clip from The View where Sonny Hostin made claims he called completely false. He paused the video and declared, "That's not an opinion. That's fiction." What followed was a montage of Hostin's most glaring errors, lacking context, full of bias. Gutfeld and Tyrus didn't yell. They calmly dissected. Tyrus noted that Hostin speaks with unchecked authority, rarely challenged by her co-hosts. The criticism wasn't about her opinions, but the illusion of objectivity she projected. Gutfeld then played more damning footage, one in which Hostin judged a notable figure guilty of misconduct before an investigation could even begin. Another incident in which she manipulated data to support a previously disproven narrative. Third, and perhaps most damaging, she portrayed conservative Latinos as voting against their own kind. A statement that received condemnation from all sides of the political spectrum for its racial insensitivity. Tyrus didn't hold back. "That's not commentary," he said. "That is elitism in its most basic form. That's someone who has never had to defend herself outside of a studio full of applause."
Because if she is shaming descendants of this, will she continue to do that when she is now one of them, Dana? And it is funny. She's so wrapped up in identity and she had no idea who she was.
Well, now we understand why she always makes Whoopi get the coffee.
Has been against Hillary Clinton, and the bottom
They did all
line
those
is
things.
This country is a misogynistic country, and this country is a country that, out of all of the first world countries, hasn't been able to elect a female president.
So
That's just factual.
Okay, listen.
That's not what I read. The true sign of the apocalypse is someone that dumb has a lot of...
But this wasn't just a takedown. It was a mirror, since Gutfeld and Tyrus were insulting more than one presenter. They were dealing with a whole culture of organized wrath. They were alluding to the media system, which promotes people like Sonny Hostin, not in spite of their bigotry, but because of it. They thought that the culture had reached a breaking point. In the days that followed, the internet did what it always does: divide. Millions of viewers watched excerpts from the show. Conservatives applauded Gutfeld and Tyrus as truth-tellers, exposing established media's unbridled arrogance. Liberals criticized the show as performative trash talk. However, the noise could not mask the signal. Whether you agreed or not, one thing was clear: Sonny Hostin was no longer shielded by silence. Former colleagues and guests began speaking out, while the View's producers quietly strategized. Hostin had become a symbol of unchecked media elitism, facing real accountability in an industry where it's rare. But this time, the criticism came from mainstream TV, not fringe outlets. That's what made it powerful, the media turning on itself. And it raised a deeper question. What happens when the storytellers lose credibility? The answer, it seems, is a quiet revolution. A subtle one, maybe gradual but noticeable. Viewers are no longer passive. They do fact-checking in real time. They clip, repost, reframe, and remember. They remember when someone, such as Sonny Hostin, tells them what to believe, and then contradicts it when the facts change. They remember her discussing communities she doesn't live in, issues she hasn't faced, and saying that credentials are a substitute for knowledge.
Their brains are small. But who's the dumbest one of all? True, none of them are in Mensa, but who's the most densa? Perhaps it's Sonny who mastered the art of making idiots look smart. Now, The View could ask a mirror who's the dumbest one of all, but there's no way that glass doesn't shatter. Take Sonny Hostin, who thinks climate change caused the solar eclipse, the dumbest of them all. Because everyone knows the moon caused the eclipse, which is controlled by The View's gravitational pull.
Gutfeld and Tyrus did not only identify inconsistencies. They reopened a wound that has been festering in the American media for years. The belief that some people are impervious to criticism because of their platform or polish. However, no one is immune to challenge now. Maybe that was the best thing. That could have happened to the landscape. Perhaps it will prompt them to reevaluate what it means to educate, discuss, and engage. Perhaps they will dive further, lean farther into the echo chamber, and conclude that this was all noise. The crowd has already moved on. They've seen beyond the curtain, and it's not that dazzling after all.
You know, I make fun of The View a lot, but that's only because they keep talking. Those hens are always clucking. They get to say stupid stuff for an hour every day, and then I get to say stupid stuff for an hour every day, except on purpose. But every now and then, one of those dingbats inadvertently says something that reveals modern liberal thought so perfectly it deserves further study. You know, like a weird serpent that washed up on the beach and you want to poke it with a stick. She had to tell the audience that she tips big because even she knows she sounds insufferable. Hey, I'm an but at least I tip. This dame probably virtue signals on the toilet. But that's not the point here. While everybody else was trying to figure out how to survive as the government told us that breathing in public could kill us, Sonny was lolling around in her big house clicking on pictures of arugula while mixing Cocoa Puffs into her Haagen-Dazs. Oh, the oppression. I wonder if she wiped down the groceries herself or had her maid do it.
So the next time Sonny Hostin presents a lecture in the manner of a monologue, the audience may not cheer as enthusiastically. They may raise an eyebrow, ask a question, or do their own research. Because once you see the cracks in the mirror, you stop believing what you see. And this, more than any segment or ratings contest, represents the actual change. Truth is discovered, not passed down. Now it is your turn. So what do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you don't want to miss out on the hottest celebrity news, make sure to subscribe to Daily Finder.